Okay, so we are up to Chaf Tes Amid Beis. Right when we ended, there was a little bit of confusion, and it's really because Rashi himself seems to flip-flop a little bit on the issue of what kind of revius we're dealing with. But let's just keep it simple. And basically, the proof, Rav Yosef, he thought it was two revius. Revius of what? And Rashi defined revius at that time when the question was how much beer do you need to put in Eruv. And Rashi defined it as two trei revi and shichra, two trei lugin the lug rova hakav. So when you use the expression revius, it was rova hakav, which is a trei lugin. The lug rova hakav, so therefore that it meant two lugin, which means based on the calculations that was 8 reviuses would be 2 lugin, and basically the way he arrived at that was because it was 4 times, just like by Hotzah, the shear of sheikh was 4 times wine. If indeed Rav said that it's 2 reviuses of wine, and 4 times that would be 8 reviuses of wine, and that revius is referring to revius of a lug, as opposed to revius hakav, and therefore that's how you ended up with 2 lugin. Anyway, the Gemara comes back and says that you have no proof because when it comes to hotzah, it's a different calculation, and the reason why you need 4 times that amount by a hotzah is because that's what's needed to be choshev. But here it's more of a practical. By here it's more of a practical issue of what are you going to drink, and people drink beer 1 cup in the morning, 1 cup in the afternoon, and therefore 2 cups would be fine as opposed to needing 2 lugin. Okay, so but the part of the confusion is what when you see the word revius, is it revius halug, revius hakav? So that leads to some differences of opinion, but that seems to be the final maskana. That's what Rav Yosef thought, and the Gemara comes back and says no, that's not correct. Okay, let's pick it up where we left off. Tomorrow in Bekama.
So I'm sorry. There's 4 revius to a lug and 4 lug to a kav, right?
Right, correct. So when you use the word revius, it could be one of those. Right, actually, and there's also revius of a revius, which we had. That was a shear of the wine, of the raw wine, on the undiluted wine you needed to take out. It also was a little bit of a. Rashi seems to flip-flop in different places. Is that referring to revius of a lug, the undiluted wine, and when you dilute it, you end up with 4 ounces, or is it you starting with 4 ounces, and when you undilute it, you have 16 ounces? That also is an issue, but at the end of the day, it seems like a koshel brach is 4 ounces, and the havmin here would have been actually it's 30. Right, so 4 ounces and 32 ounces would come out 4 times, 4 times a. Or 2 revius, it would have been 8 ounces in Rav, and 4 times the 8 ounces would have been 32 ounces. That would have been the Havamid, and then we end up no for the Eruv. although for the kosher bracha, there's a Havamid. I think it's 16 ounces. In other words, if you start with 6, if you start with 4 ounces and you got to do 4 times that amount of water, then it would come out that the Havamid would actually be. There is a seeming. On one shot in Rashi, it seems to be that's what it would be. End up being 4 times 4, 16 ounces to be a koshel bracha, which I'm sure would make some people happy when making an alcohol. Anyway, okay, let's get back to the Gemara tomorrow in Bekama. So slightly below the middle of the page on Chav Tesman Beis, tomorrow in Bekama. Rav Yosef tomorrow in Bekav. So my answer is, Rav Yosef says that if you want to make an Eruv with dates, you got to use at least a kav. Rav Yosef how do I know that a kav will be sufficient for dates? And Tanya, make a simple calculation. It says in the Brisa, Ocha grogos v'shilem tomorrow. A guy eats grogos of truma. Instead of paying back the grogos that he eats, the dried figs, he pays back with dates. So what's halacha? Tovel of bracha. He gets a tovel of bracha that he indeed did do a nice thing. It works. Heichidam. What's the case that it's tovel of bracha that you ate figs, you pay back dates, and you get a bracha for paying back the dates instead of the figs. What's the case? If you paid back based on the monetary value of the figs in relation to the dates, and it's the same. You ate a zuz worth of figs, and you pay back a zuz worth of dates. My tov of bracha. What's the bracha here? Bezuzah acha, bezuzah kamishalim. You ate a zuz, and you pay back a zuz. So what exactly is the big deal that you should get a bracha for paying back with dates? Elif lava femida must be that it's about the measure. Giruya de groros. You ate a certain sheer X amount of grogos in terms of a measure. The shavi zuzah that was worth a zuz. And you pay back the exact same measure of tamarim that you ate of the figs, but that the tamarim were worth 4. So you're paying back more than what they're worth. Now that already makes sense. That should be, you should get a ukatani tavel of bracha. And the Brisa says you get a bracha. Why? Alma, what do you see from getting a bracha of paying back the exact same amount of dates than you pay than figs, and yet tavel of bracha? Where's the tavel of bracha? The answer is Alma tamar madifa. Must be that tamarim are better, they're worth more, and therefore, because they're worth more, that's a tavel of bracha. That now, if that you're paying back more than what you ate, which is a wonderful thing. And what can I extrapolate from here? That once I know from an earlier source, remember that Mishnah we had in Nomen Aleph that grogers are a kav, so I can say for sure a kolshkein that is certainly, if you pay back a kav worth of tamarim, which are worth more based on our understanding right now than a kav worth of te'enim, then you're certainly good to go. Maybe even less, but we can't prove less, but we can prove at least this. We can prove at least this much will get you an eruv. To which Abai said, I hate to bust your bubble. I'll tell you really that figs are more valuable. And therefore maybe a kav worth of figs is good enough for an eruv. Maybe you need more than a kav worth of tamarim to qualify for that. What's said over here of Tovil of Bracha? Because I'll tell you the case is you ate a zuz worth of tainim, and you want to pay back a zuz worth of tamarim. So the question is, if it's a zuz for a zuz, where's the bracha? The bracha is you ate something which is very prevalent, that you don't have people jumping at it to get it, which is the figs. And you bought something, and you paid back with something that people are running to get, because apparently dates were a much shorter supply than figs. Since that's the case, you get a bracha because at least you made it easier for the guy. So it isn't like you're paying back something that's really more valuable, but it's something that you just can't get. I guess there are things that just because you can't get it, people want it, but they're not worth more. I guess normally, you'd say the two are hand in hand, but not really true. Because if bobby pins were not in supply, people stop paying $100 for a bobby pin? Probably not. I guess there's certain things that but you want. If you have it around, then you can easily sell it, as opposed to something which is very prevalent. So that's different. So it's not about the worth. The worth talk of figs could be worth more. In which case, you have no way to extrapolate from figs over to dates. Pshat in the Brisa was about in the Brisa was about the idea that it's more. Dates are less prevalent, and therefore you have easier people to want to buy it from you. Okay, let's catch up in the Rashis. Ochal grogros. Yeah, he says shel truma b'shogi. You ate a measure of grogros of truma accidentally. With the halachas, you have to pay back that amount plus a fifth. Bezuzah b'shav bezuz. Tomorrow and you're paying back the dates which are more valuable than grogros. You're not paying back. That was in the case where you're not paying back by the measure. You're paying back by the value, right? So what do you see from here? He says, right, so I mean that's a part. That's one of the steps of the Gemara. If you're paying back zuz for zuz and there's no tovel of bracha, the Gemara thought. So what must you be paying back? The next step must be you paying back based on measure. Alma tamar madifa utan le'el. Okay, so what does that teach me? Next Rashi, utan le'el gabe oni begorin kav gorgos. We spoke about how much you have to give out of to the oni. We said you have to give out a kav of goros, a measure of a kav of the figs. And Rav said on that statement that so too for the erev, showing that indeed the shear for an erev of grogros is a kav. And for sure, tomorrow will be enough to use a kav. Now, maybe could you argue it should be less than a kav if it's more valuable? Maybe, but at least I can prove this much. To which Abaye comes to bust a bubble. You can't prove from here that dates are more valuable, and therefore a kav worth of dates will certainly be sufficient for an erev. I'll tell you, really, grogos are better. And you paid back based on the value. So then the obvious kash is my bracha. What's the bracha? What's the tavel of bracha? What's the nice thing that you did in paying back dates? And the answer is umay bracha the kavatzel zvini leichim. Okay, that people will jump to buy it. However, when it comes to erev, you really would need more than a kav, because who says that it's just as valuable? In fact, maybe it's the other way around. So we don't know. Okay. Back to the Gemara, and
why would the value of something determine how much you need for an erev? How does that? Because what you need for an erev would be something like what you eat in a meal, right? So why is the value? How does the value relate?
How does the value relate? Because you're telling me that when it comes to an erev, it's about what you eat. So if I guess it could be possibly the more valuable food that you eat typically you would not eat as much of it because of its value. That could be.
So it'll be a smaller portion of your meal.
I guess so. I mean, that's you're making a good point. That's the pshat. What per se things that are very valuable you would not eat a lot of in a meal. You'd keep it less just to. I guess we adjust our eating habits based on the value of an item. That's what you have to say. Okay. Definitely something to think about. Okay, so let's proceed. Sisa, right? Third wide line in the Gemara. What about shasisa? What's shasisa? So Rashi says, Maichel sha'isa mikemach koli. It's a food that's made from the the toasted grain. Shenis yavesh patana, that was dried in an oven, like these kernels. The noisim devash tochatavshel, and you put honey inside the cooked item that you're roasting. So it sounds like some kind of sweet grain thing that's toasted or roasted. So how much do you need of that? Some ravacha bar pinchas trei shagushe. Okay, you need 2 shagushe is tarvadim, 2 spoonfuls. Okay, so it's not, we don't have an exact measure here, but 2 spoonfuls is what you would need. Again, it doesn't sound like a lot of food, but I guess if that's what you normally ate, maybe based on the value of chvesish, but that's all it was, so that's good enough for the erev. Okay, next, kisni. Okay, kisni is kloyos, is toasted grain. What about that? How much toasted grain do you have? Which is, I guess, not as flamboyant as the item we just had with the honey and stuff, but this is similar. So what about this? 1 second. Amar Abaye, trey bune de pumpadisa. It's 2 measures of the measure of a buni, which is in pumpadisa. So Rashi, buni is midos. So the word the buni is a midah that they had in pumpadisa. It's 2 of those bunis. So whatever you want to, if you want to just randomly say that buni is an ounce for argument's sake, then it'll be 2 ounces. Okay, but we don't know what a buni is. Okay, next, Amar Abaye. So once we mention this kisani, we go off a little bit of a tangent here with Abaye and his nurse who took care of him and who raised him. Omar Abaye, Omar Aim. My mother told me, and it was not his biological mother who passed away when he was born, but the one who raised him. Omar Aim, Hani Kisani Malu Liba. This kisani, this parched grain, this is good for the heart. And it calms down your nerves, so you can save money on therapy by eating this stuff, and it just makes you calmer, and everything is good. Rashi machshava daiga takes away the daiga, and it's mavatal the daiga, the worry, which even then would come upon a person sometimes without even. It doesn't seem to even want to, you can't control it, or maybe something is going on in your life, but anyway, this helps you calm down. From Abaye, another statement Abaye made, Amrli Aim, another thing my mother told me, Haiman di Isli Chulsha de Liba, if you have a heart problem, you had a weak heart, Leise Bisra da Atma Yamina de Dichra, bring some meat of the right thigh of a ram, and bring the excrement of an animal. The Isa Denisa. I'll just see Rashi here for a minute. Make sure it's a pa boko. Yeah, this is the excrement of an animal that excreted and that gave it off in Nisan. Okay, vileka kivuye derisa. If you don't have that particular excrement of an animal from Nisan, let's say sugaina da arvasa. In order to replace it, you bring sugaina da arvasa, some kind of twigs from a wicker basket, from a rub of the willows. V'nichbei. And you make a charcoal out of it, v'nechel, and you put some meat over it, v'nishtei basrei, and after you eat the meat that's cooked on these charcoals made from this little concoction here, then v'nishtei basrei chamra marka, and you drink diluted wine, and you'll feel better. Okay, it's just the exercise alone to get all this done will probably help you. But anyway, okay, that's what you need, that's what you drink, and it'll make your heart feel better, and you won't have a weak heart anymore. Let's see Rashi. Kivuye de Isa Denisan Tzfiye Baka, we did that. Sugaino de Arvasa, Kispin Shalarova, it's twigs of the willow tree. V'nichbei Yasemen Gachelas, make from it a charcoal. V'yitzal behen osa basa v'nechel, and that meat that I told you to take the meat of the right thigh of the ram, you roast that meat on this type of coal, and then you drink charma marco, which is yayin mozug, diluted wine with water, and you're good to go. Okay, back to the Gemara, 2 dots. We had discussed this issue of this item by itself for 2 meals worth, or is it the item of what you would eat with meat, with bread for 2 meals? So this was all part of the things that we've been talking about. So Shmuel gives a little bit of a rule. Kol shulifton, if it's a item eaten with bread, so it's like a dip type of item, they lechobo. Okay, then you take the amount for an erev of what you would normally eat with that item, with the main item like the bread, and then you just use it as a dip, and you don't look at it as a independent meal by itself. Kol she'eno lifton. Okay, but if it's not the item that you would normally use as a sort of a dip for your food, then kadei lechol heimenu. Then you need the full amount of what you would have from it for 2 meals. Okay, so if pickles was your meal and that was the only meal, then obviously there would be a lot more pickles than if you. How many pickles do you eat? When you have you use a meal and your pickles are just for a little bit of a side dish kind of thing. So so the difference is, what kind of food is it? Is it a food that serves normally as a independent meal, or is it used as a lifton? Okay, basachai. What about raw meat? They lechol heimenu. That the amount you don't normally use basachai as a dip, and therefore it's what you would have. How much meat would you have during 2 meals as meat being your meal. Bosat Sli, what about roasted meat? Rabba Omar Kedei Rabba says it's the amount you would eat with it, which means it's a side dish. Rav Yosef says, no, you need more, and you got to get 2 full rib steaks out, because that we look at that as that's your meal, Bosat Sli, roasted meat, as opposed to just simply using it as a dip. Okay, so what about raw meat? Why would raw meat be a meal? And there's either some people eat raw meat. I remember Buck Buchanan of the Kansas City Chiefs. They would say he liked raw steaks. He wouldn't bother with the barbecue. And then maybe it's salted meat, possibly. So maybe that's how it's still raw, but it's somewhat salted to make it somewhat edible. Okay. But clearly we had mentioned that in order to make an Eruv, you have to have food that's able to be eaten. It can't be food that needs to be cooked in order to be eaten. Okay, look at Rashi. Anything which is, in a sense, a dip of bread and something else, or some chashuv item like that, and that is what you dip the bread into. So if that's what you are, shiur and the shear is how much you would have. And it doesn't seem like you need the other stuff. In other words, all you need is this, and since this is what you normally would have for 2 meals, it doesn't sound like you need the other bread and the other stuff with it. That's a sufficient amount for an Eruv to get you going. On the other hand, if it's not an item that's normally served as a side dish, then and you got to fill up the basket with that amount of 2 meals from it. Basachai, Eina lifton, raw meat is not a dip. Ubinon kidei lechol mimenu, and you need the full amount of 2 meals of raw meat being your main meal, being the whole meal. And on the other hand, basad sli pligiba. But when it comes to roasted meat, that's already machlokes. You have a lifton or low. Is that considered a dip? Where you sort of, I don't know, apparently maybe you put it in a sandwich or something. You wouldn't eat it by itself, or maybe, I don't know, maybe salami or pastrami might be a similar kind of thing. Maybe you don't eat it by itself. You put it into something else. You put it into a sandwich. But that's a machlokes between Rabbi and Rav Yosef. Okay, we caught up on the Rashis. Back to the Gemara. Rav Yosef 2 lines from the bottom. So how do I know what I just said? I said that you have to have the full meal from it, as opposed to looking at it as a dip, the roasted meat. So how do I know this halacha? I'll tell you how I know. Because these Persians eat tabaki below nama. Okay, no, you'd think it would be tobacco, but no. What's tabaki? Rashi, chatichais, pieces of sliced meat, they would eat without bread. So you see that even though it was roasted, there would still be it would still be a food of the Persians by itself. So proving that it's not a dip, but rather it's a main meal. Really? It says Abayu, really? Uparsoy have Eruvin alma. So now the Persians are going to determine how the whole world operates, because we're going to see a couple of Persians who act a certain way. What about the rest of the world? Not everybody comes from Persia. Maybe everybody in Beverly Hills comes from Persia, but not everybody. Okay, so so Parsoy have Eruvin alma for Tanan, but it says in the Mishnah, Big de Aniyim Laniyim, right? So remember we had learned that there were different types of shurim for begodim. So a poor person's beged is 3 etzbos by 3 etzbos, while a rich man's beged is a bigger, because why would a rich guy use a small little patch of cloth while a rich man would need a garment or a piece of clothing 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim. So big day aniyim laniyim, the garments of aniyim are able to become tamei based on the fact that aniyim have it. Big day ashirim lashirim, and the shear of big day ashirim is for rich people who look at a garment a certain way. Look at Rashi. Big day aniyim shalosh al shalosh mekabel tumel aniyim, 3 finger breadths. Okay, is the shear of a cloth for aniyim. Big yashirim shlosh al shloshim 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim mekabel tumah afla shirim. That's able to mekabel tumah even for shirim. If somebody's tamei and you touch that cloth, then you will render it tamei if it has that shear depending on who you are and what the size of the cloth is. Big day, yeah. Aval, top of the page. Aval big day ashir maniyim loy. But if you have a beged of an ashir and the nani has it, do you still maintain the same shear of 3 tfachim, or do you say less? So look at Rashi. Claim elaniyim lo binam big day ashirim. For nani, you don't need big day ashirim. Thought he just said that. Elakivan will do chazi. Okay, since for him less than the shear would be fitting, because he would certainly use a cloth or clothing, whatever the garment might be, whatever it is that you're dealing with, it's fitting less than that. Also basrayu, you go after him. So even though this particular piece of cloth came from the Queen of England, and it is less than 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. We don't say that since this is a big day usher, it does not have the shear of a big day usher. If an ani happens to have her towel and it's bigger than 3 etzbos, it's going to become tamei. Why? Because the ani has it. That means we go at the subjective level of the individual you're dealing with, as opposed to the objective view of the world. Because this is a big of an ashir, and the shear should be 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim to makabel tumah. But since it's in the hands of an ani, we're going to go after the ani. Okay, so continuing in Rashi. So one more time, let's read Rashi one more time. Klaimar laniyim lo binam big day ashirim. For an ani, you don't. Klaimar laniyim lo binan big day ashirim. Elakivan the latu chazi azabas raihu. Since for him. Okay, not sure. Okay, I don't know why there's not something that's derived from the first part. It says big day ani. It says big day ani laniyim, a big day ashirim lashirim. Of a big day ashirim laniyim, lo binam big day ashirim. To an ani, you don't need a big day ashir. Since for him it's fitting, you go after him. Rashi doesn't say what I said, but I think that's what Rashi means. That there's when Nani has a big day ashir, even though you'd say the big day ashir, the essential person who uses the big day ashir is not this Ani, but if he has it, we're going to go after him. Rashi's wording is just a little vague. Hachinami here too. So how do we extrapolate from there to our case? Hachinami avagad parsoy lav liftan who, even though to the Persians it's not a dip, it's a meal unto itself. As we said, they would eat the sliced pastrami without any sandwiches. They would just woof it down, by itself. Kivonly done heavy lift on. Since for us it is a dip, it's not the main thing. The sagi b'shir azuta. It's enough to have a smaller shear. So I was thinking that chopped liver might be a good example of that, because most people eat chopped liver with something else. They don't just chug down the chopped liver. You have crackers or whatever, and that's how you eat it. So okay, but the answer, but you see from this Mishnah about the poor people that you go after this particular case. So for the Persians, that's. Don't have you lift on nisagi b'shir zuta. Let it be enough with the shir zuta. So in other words, so Abai is arguing that since it's subjective, we who eat it with a dip, why should you require the higher amount of 2 full meals based on the Persian customs? Who cares about the Persian customs? If we're making the Eruv, let it be good enough for us to go after our. Okay. Also, not so posh. In other words, because this is a different point. This is a point that it gets subjective. When the words of Abaye were "Pasoy of Ruba de Alma," I guess this is what he meant when he said. See, I would have said the question is we go after the majority.
Because we've said that before. They brought up
right. So if you have to, right, exactly.
That do it one way.
Right, but he's proving something which says you go after the subjective individual. He's proving something that L'choi didn't really have to prove. All he could have proved is that the minority doesn't dictate the majority attitudes. Now, or maybe fakir. It seems like maybe what he's saying is maybe the Persians are the general custom, but they don't represent everybody. That's what it's. That would be more of the flow of the Gemara. That even though there are many people who do it a certain way, if we don't follow the Persians, maybe we are the minority. But big deal for us. We have a right to go subjectively based on the way we do it. Like what he's proving doesn't seem to be a support to the basic premise of his question that the Persians don't represent the majority. But okay, a little funny here. But certainly, the thrust of the kasha we know. It seems like it's two different points that are being made. One is that you don't have to go after a minority against a majority, or if I care, here it seems to be proving that the subjective individual has a right to dictate halacha. So for us, we don't have these meats as a full meal. We have them as a side dish, and therefore we should be allowed to make an heir from a lesser shear. Okay, he says, okay, so l'chayra, Abaye has disproven Rav Yosef. Right? Rav Yosef wanted to say that's why I need two full meals because of the Persians. Abaye is saying, no, the Persians shouldn't dictate to us what's going on. V'chi tema, maybe you're going to argue back in the Gemara now, end of the first line. Maybe it's only when it's machmer. We only go after the... I hate to say even the majority because the Persians weren't the majority, but I don't know whatever prevailing. You go after, you don't go after, or you go after the subjective. But maybe when you go after the subjective is only when it's a chumrah. Basically, you always go l'chumrah. When when the Persians represented. The maybe mainstream opinion, there you go l'chumrah, even though maybe subjectively people did it differently, but it would be more machmir to require two full meals of that meat as opposed to two dips size of that meat. And here you go l'chumrah, saying that it becomes tamei as long as it's 3 etzbos. So maybe it's not about any one way determining the way to go. Maybe just we're not sure which way to go, and whatever is the machmadik way, that's the way you go. Maybe that's what this proves. Maybe Rav Yosef is still correct. Maybe you're going to argue that Abai hasn't proven anything, because in that particular case, making the beged of the ani tamei, okay, even though it's a beged of an ashir and the ani happens to just have it. Maybe that's a chumrah thing, but we always go to chumrah, in which case Rav Yosef would be right. Ayva Tanya, Reb Shimon Elazar Eimer, Ma'arvin l'chayla, u'lezaken kedei mezaynai. Okay, when you want to make an heir for a sick person and for an old person who don't eat as much, okay, then that's good enough. The way he normally eats is what you would need. You see that it's subjective. Ravasan, if it's a guy who's always hungry, okay, a typical yeshiva guy, or all of a sudden, besuda, that's just a joke, or besuda beinin is shel kolodam. Even though you're a gluttonous guy and you love to eat, we're not going to go like that for you. For you, we're only going to make it an average person's meal. So we're going to, one bowl of cholent is going to be enough for you, even though you normally would pack away 4 bowls of cholent for a meal. That's not what we're going to require you for Shabbos, because that's not what a normal person eats. What do you see from here? If anything, you always go lenient. Okay? So, kasha. So, Ror recognizes, indeed, you got me. One more time, Ravasan besuda beinish shel kol adam. For Ravasan, it's only an average suda. So you see that it's not a chumrah dikazach. It's a consistent approach. That if anything, we're always going to be lenient, not to make you do more than the average guy. So if given a choice, our approach is always going to be lenient. So here too, between Persians and Ruba da Alma, for sure we're not going to go after the Persians, which is a chumrah. We're going to go after the average guy and be makel. So Kashi, you got me. So basically, Rav Yosef does not have any support whatsoever. I'm not sure why it's a kasha. It doesn't. Well, maybe I guess it sort of does disprove Rav Yosef to some degree, because it does show that we look to be makel in these situations. So it does represent the problem. Okay, and that's a Tana as opposed to Rav Yosef who was an Amira. Okay, let's do the Rashi. Hachal chumra, last wide line. Maybe you're going to argue that they're both chumra. They give him the chazuluhu b'kabli tuma. Since it's fit for him, it will become tamei. Okay, when it comes to the beged, v'achal chumra da'ad havi lifton l'kulyamo liboy shuraba. Until it's a universal dip, it always needs a higher shear. Maybe that's the point. And this is not a universal dip. For the Persians, it's a meal. For us, it's a dip. So maybe in this situation, you have to be machmir to go after the Persian mentality. And you have to have it as a full meal. When you have, chveis, hummus, okay, then everyone agrees that no one is going to have hummus as a meal. Okay, that's going to be a universal dip. And maybe things that are a little bit in the middle, it's a different story. But it's maybe l'chumra. Vatanya, I'll prove to you that's not true. Vatanya gabi Eruv, by the laws of Eruv itself, it says that even the chazal zaken ol chayla, since it's fitting for an old person and a sick person who don't have big appetites, who eat a lot less. Avagav the l'chodem loy v'mazon shtei sudas, even though for everybody else it's not considered two legitimate sudas, marvin miyolaman de chazi, but you would make an heir for the one who it's fit for. And yet, when it comes to a real gluttonous guy, who likes to eat a lot, sagi beininus. Okay, it's enough to have a regular meal. What do you see from here? That our whole approach to Erev is alma lukulas, and we always go lukula. If you go lukula, then there's absolutely no logic to say that between the Persian mentality versus our mentality, and the Persians require more food, that we should go after the Persian approach. It should definitely be that we look at it as a dip, and all you would need is 2 meals of it as a dip, as opposed to 2 meals of it as an independent meal. Okay, so really now, but we're still not done. Umi Amar Reb Shimon Oza, did really Reb Shimon Oza say this? That you go Lukuli here with the Erev, Vatanya Reb Shimon Oza Eimer, and meaning it's subjective to the person, and we're allowed to be makel based on the habits of that particular individual, right? That's what it seems that he goes subjective. Really, I'll prove to you it's not true. Vatani Reb Shimon Ozer Oig Melech Habashan Pischei Kimilui. When it comes to Og Melech Habashan, if he's dead, and if theoretically he was Jewish, meaning basically a giant guy who needs a lot bigger of a opening to get out of a house, and he's lying there dead, and you want to determine which of the entrances is he going to go through, because if it's an entrance that he's not going to go through, that entrance would be deemed tahor, as it's not the one that he's destined to pass through, because we know everything in the room is tameh, but let's say the entrances are debatable. It's only that which he's going to be able to pass through. And here, if it's not kemiluo, if it's not his size, it's different. Look at Rashi. Pischo kemiluo. The opening for Og has got to be at least the size of who he is. Lahatzel al shar psachim. In order to spare the other doorways from becoming tamei, you have to be able to look at one and say, this is the doorway he's going to go through. And because if they're all equal, let's say for a regular guy, you had 10 doorways, each one of 4 tfachim. Well, then it's a jump ball. It could be anybody. Any Pesach could be the Pesach he's going to go through. So you can't say this is the right one, so they all become tamei, because they all are deemed as valid psachim. But if you have one that clearly is earmarked for this guy's size, then that will spare, or for example, let's say a bunch of them were less than 4 tfachim, and there was only 1 4 tfachim, that one that's 4 tfachim will spare and save the other ones from getting tamei. Becoming tamei, I guess, and anything within that area wouldn't become tamei because it's not under the OL. So it has to have a din of a Pesach, but it's got to be one that is fitting for this guy. Now, if he's Og, he's Haysak's Calhoun, and that guy needs a major Pesach to get him out of there. If it's like his size, that's going to save all the other psachim. Vileka Pesach the Chazilei. Okay, and if there's not any Pesach that's fit for this guy, Kol Chur Molei Egrov Shebiksolim Tamein. Well, then every hole the size of a fist is going to become Tamei. Right? If nothing fits, then everyone's in the same boat. And as long as it's a Kamolei Egrov, I guess because eventually you can open that up and make it into one that he's going to be able to get out of, that they all become Tamei. So what do you see from here? That even though the other ones are bigger than 4, we go subjective. We go after Oig Chaboshan. So what's the kasha? Rosam besuda beinishikol adam. Umi amr b'shem lo zahachi. Vatam shem lo zahim Oig Chaboshan pischei kimiluoi. And so what's the kasha that? Let's see, Aleph. Second. So maybe it's on the Beinani kasha. That how could you say?
Big appetite.
Huh?
With the Rav,
Yeah, for the Rava's son. Right, and it does fit to the other one. I mean, I don't know why you can't just answer that we're makel by Erev, because you see by the Zaken it does go subjective. So what's your problem? Because you see, Shabbos is a subjective man, but he's got to be subjective in all areas. How could it be that when it comes to the Rava's son that he goes after the Beinani, when over here Og Melech HaBashan, you don't go after the Beinani. You have the determination of the Pesach based on Og Melech HaBashan. Okay, I hear. I mean, fine. I mean, I could see a simple answer, but I guess Gemara didn't like that simple answer. So the Gemara wants to know, how does Rabbi Shimon Elazar consistent when the halacha of the Rava son seems to go up against the halacha of Og Melech HaBashan? To which Abaye comes back and says, it's not a problem. Abaye, back to the Gemara, Hosam Heichilevit, says Abaye. What do you want the Olam to do by the case of Og Melech HaBashan? It's not an issue that we don't want to go after the average guy. Okay, we would go after the average size, except that in this particular case, an average size will not help you anywhere. You can't. Heichilevit, Hadumi Nahadme, V'nafke. What you want us to cut up the guy and then take him out bit by bit? That's not practical. We're not going to turn into some weird situation here where you're going to cut the guy up. So you have to find a place where you're going to be able to take him out in one piece. That's therefore only the one opening that you have. It's not practically possible to go after the general world in this case, while it certainly is possible to go after the general world in the case of the Erev. So you cannot compare the two cases. Rashi, what Hadumi Nahadme Yenechul Evarim? You want us to break him up into pieces? So bottom line is the answer is that Reb Shimon Elazar is consistent. He goes after his general approach that you go after subjective, but when you go after the Beinani, although again a little troublesome by the Zaken, he doesn't go after the Beinani. He goes there, he's Mekel, but whatever. So, but by Og, the reason why he went after Og is because he had no choice but to go after Og. I think let's stop here. We'll pick this up tomorrow.